Looking to catch up on the latest Star Wars books? Featuring sound effects and music directly from the movies, Star Wars audiobooks are the definitive listening experience. Listen to Star Wars Light of the Jedi, written by Charles Soule, read by Mark Thompson, and Star Wars The High Republic, A Test of Courage, written by Justina Ireland and read by Kaylor Lee. Available now wherever audiobooks are sold.
This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is James Arnold Taylor, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. I have a good feeling about this.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi, show number 382. We are your spoiler-free place for Star Wars discussion, analysis, and rhetoric. I am your host, Dan Z, drinking One Nation coffee out of my Star Wars Rival Run Weekend coffee mug from 2019. Excited to talk some Star Wars with each and every one of you. On today's show, Jeff McGee of Talking Toys with Taylor and Jeff, Marvin Dog Media, and Star Wars Splash Page joins me to return to look at our top 5 favorites from each line of the action figures that started it all, the Kenner Star Wars 3 3/4 inch action figures. And it's hard to believe, but we haven't looked at the Kenner Star Wars action figures in great detail since July of 2019. But we're going to talk about the reason for the delay and jump right into the conversation. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some coffee with Kenobi.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
Returning to join us for a cup of coffee is Mr. Jeff McGee of, my goodness, Marvin Dog Media, Star Wars Splash Page. So good to have you back on the show, dude.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Good to be back. It's when you said asked me to be on, you said, "Where did we leave off last time?" I'm like, "Gosh, it's been so long, Dan. I just don't know."
I had to look it up. So obviously Jeff has been on numerous times over the years. He filled in for Corey when Corey went back to school years ago, and we've been longtime friends for a while now. But we've been doing these occasionally. We've been doing these top 5 reviews of different sets of the original Star Wars Kenner line. Because we're such big fans of that line, and it's been so influential in Star Wars and in our fandom and just pop culture and just being students of the world, really. So I looked it up. February 7th of 2019, we did the first 12, the famous first 12. That was quite a bit ago, almost 2 years. And then July 18th of 2019, we did releases for 13 to 21. So I could not believe it had been since the summer of 2019 that we did this. Does that seem weird?
It does, but at the same time, I mean, 2020, basically from March on, I've been in my apartment for the most part, Yeah. So it seems like there's been no time has passed since then. So it doesn't surprise me that it's been that long. And it also doesn't surprise me that it doesn't seem like it's been that long.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I followed the bouncing ball there. That was good.
Yeah. I guess I should say it does surprise me because it doesn't feel like it's been that long. That's what I meant to say.
No, I totally understand.
You wouldn't think I do 5 podcasts on a regular basis.
Yeah, I was going to say you're a busy man, but we're always very pleased to. I don't know why I keep saying we. I am always very pleased to have you on the show, and of course, you and I and Corey talk. Gosh, every day via text.
Daily,
all the time, which is great. All right. So it's been a while since we did this, but it's fun to return to it. And before we do, obviously your wealth of knowledge of toys is extensive, but so is your knowledge and informational value for all of us who listen to you and Matt Moore on Star Wars Splash Page every week. Talk to me about what's going on in the world of Star Wars comics.
Well, the biggest thing right now is obviously the High Republic. Marvel and IDW are both releasing books set during the High Republic period. In fact, High Republic #1 for Marvel is going into a 3rd printing, and that was announced like 2 days after the first issue came out. The 2nd printing was announced before it even came out. And when that sold out, they announced they were going to do a 3rd printing that week. It has been ridiculously well received, both critically and sales-wise. And if this was one that we talked about it on the show before we started reading it, I was a little concerned because, I'm not as big a fan of like the Knights of the Old Republic and all of that era of Star Wars because it's not my Star Wars. My Star Wars is the rebellion era. Mm-hmm. But I read this first issue and I was absolutely hooked. The creative team on that has crafted such a great world. They've given us really good characters, really interesting characters. You've got to pick up the first issue if for no other reason than Ario Anindito, the artist, drew Yoda, and Yoda is so young that he's actually strutting in the book. And I confirmed this. We actually interviewed Ario earlier this week, and that will be out in a few weeks. But I asked him, I said, did you mean to draw him strutting? And he said, oh, absolutely. That's exactly what I was going for. I'm glad you noticed. So there's that. Other than that, this week, Darth Vader, I believe it was issue number 9 came out, which is a continuation of the story of the test that the Emperor is putting him through. Really great storytelling. Next week, we have Dr. Aphra, the next issue of Dr. Aphra. And I made a comment the other day that if you're not reading Dr. Aphra, why do you hate comics? Because I don't know anybody who doesn't love Aphra who's a Star Wars fan.
They're a great character.
It really is. And we, in fact, we did a back in the summer when the Star Wars, they did the online convention. Matt and I teamed up with the guys from the Bro Axiom podcast to do like a roundtable on comics. And the last thing I asked the panel was, who is your favorite new character introduced in the comics, and why is it Dr. Aphra? And to a person, every person on the call agreed, yes, Dr. Aphra is our favorite new character. And that is just an example of the wealth of stuff that's of material that's coming out in Star Wars. We're getting a lot of new characters to the comics, and I used to get really concerned about that and afraid that I wouldn't be able to form some sort of bond with the character. But time and time again, my fears have been proven to be unfounded. So it's bottom line is it's a great time to be a fan of comics and Star Wars. And even if you have younger readers, the IDW books that they're doing, the high, I believe it's called the High Adventures, is a really, really fun read. That's I believe it's already out. I can't remember if it's already out or if it's on the cusp of being out. We get them early to review, but between that and Star Wars Adventures, there's just literally something for everyone on the shelves right now,
which is great. And I agree. I have loved Dr. Aphra from the very beginning. Kieran Gillen, of course, created this character. She is awesome, compelling. I am particularly proud of the fact that I was able to get her in the Star Wars book for a couple of different things.
Yes.
Because she's just a tremendous character. And I hope that she someday shows up on live action, because I think she'd be a huge, huge hit.
Yes.
I do want to ask you really quickly. Charles Soule is obviously very, very hot right now, especially because he's a #1 New York Times bestselling author because of Light of the Jedi. But what do you think about his work on the Star Wars series and how it is picked up after The Empire Strikes Back?
Oh, he is honestly one of my favorite writers that's working in comics today. And Matt and I both, anytime there's there's a book that he's written that's come out, we get very excited because we know we're going to love it, and we're always surprised at just how much better it is than we even thought it was going to be. He's one of those talents that just continues to impress and surprise, and I don't know how he does it. And that goes for the majority of the, I would say pretty much all of the writers that are working in Star Wars right now. I don't understand how they can keep coming up with new ideas, because it seems like this is, as soon as I start to think the Star Wars universe is so small that it's hard to find something new, these guys find a way to do it. And he's chief among them for finding interesting angles and interesting ways to look at things and interesting takes on things. And those are the kind of talents that I just stand in awe of. Just do that. He's playing 4-dimensional chess.
Well, that's a good way to describe it. I mean, the fact that he's able to go into the minefield that is the original trilogy and come out with fresh original content for characters that we've seen, a million different ways since 1977, I think is pretty impressive.
Absolutely.
Very good. I love it. Well, okay, so let's just jump into this. We're going to go through our top 5 favorite characters from basically the third wave of the Star Wars Kenner line. Go ahead and break down all of the figures that are in this line for us.
Well, this wave contains a whopping 10 figures, and if we're doing our top 5, would you believe I had trouble whittling it down to 5? Actually, you might.
I'd have the same feeling.
These figures were released on the Empire Strikes Back card backs, and They did release a 32 back is when they added Yoda, but we can talk about Yoda when we do the next wave because it really isn't part of this wave.
Right.
And the reason they didn't want to release him is because they wanted to save that surprise. They wanted to wait until after the film came out where everybody had seen him.
Right.
So
this is basically, yes, this is the first round of the Empire Strikes Back figures.
Yes, of true Empire Strikes Back. Because again, we got Boba Fett in on the 21 bag, but this one we have Lando Calrissian, the first Bespin security guard, Luke Skywalker in his Bespin fatigues, the Rebel soldier in Hoth battle gear, the Imperial stormtrooper in Hoth battle gear, or the snowtrooper. FX7, which is my buddy Taylor's favorite action figure of all time. He says facetiously. Taylor hates FX7. We have Leia Organa in her Bespin gown, Han Solo in his Hoth outfit, Bosk the bounty hunter, and IG-88 the bounty hunter. So this was to be such a small wave. A lot of heavy hitters in this one.
This is a powerhouse lineup of 10 figures. It was extraordinarily hard to come up with 5 out of these 10. In fact, I kept looking, wait, am I just going to rank them from 10 to 1 or do I have to narrow it down to 5? But, then I looked back at our old shows and yes, we just did 5. It was very difficult. I will say I honored the Corey Club rule of don't put in ties because that's cheating. So I did not, but I do have some honorable mentions.
I have one. I kept myself to one honorable mention. And before we talk about the figures themselves, I would like to talk about this card back.
Please.
This is my favorite card back that we ever got from any of the Star Wars line, Star Wars toys. This is the one that the figures are all in basically like in window boxes, and they all got like a colored background behind them. And some of them, particularly Han Solo and the Tusken Raider, Sand People, have light shining behind them. The Stormtrooper has what looks like a sun behind him, and I can't explain it, Dan, but when I was going through all of these card backs several years ago, looking at them, this is the one that when I look at it, I'm 5 years old again, 6 years old again.
I understand.
Because this came out was when I was between 4 and 5, and it gives me warm fuzzies. It also puts a little lump in my throat because it's just that nostalgia and remembering that time. But this is just when I think of Star Wars toys. A lot of times, this is the image that I think of because it's just got. We all know that I'm a sucker for color, and this has so much color on it, and it really is just. It feels like Christmas to me.
It's about as good as it gets. I mean, the lineup between the Star Wars and the Empire Strikes Back figures is, and I think it's the ages, like you mentioned, that we were at when we experienced them and the joy that they have brought us over the years. Gosh, great. I will say that 2 of my 4, what is it Sideshow that does the larger scale of these things?
Gentle Giant that does the jumbo. Yeah.
Yes. I only have 4 of them, but 2 of them are from these 10.
I stopped collecting those when they stopped putting the Kenner banner on them and changed it to the Gentle Giant logo because then it wasn't an exact recreation.
Yeah, I agree.
And it was really a letdown because I started that with the Emperor's Royal Guard, which is one of my favorite figures of all time. But I have a ton of these. In fact, I'm pretty sure they didn't release FX7. Or they hadn't before I stopped collecting them, but I do have the rest of these.
Do you
been
really?
Released. Yeah.
And you open them, don't you? Or did?
No, I opened a few of the first ones just to kind of because you can reseal them, but for the most part, I've kept them sealed just in case I do, heaven forbid, need to sell them someday.
I know you told me years ago because I have the Ralph McQuarrie Christmas Yoda one.
Yes.
Which is pretty sweet. And I've still never opened it because I'm just afraid I won't be able to reseal it properly.
Oh, you can reseal it properly. That one I did open because I wanted to see what was in his bag. Did we talk about what's in his bag of goodies?
We did, but I don't remember. What is it?
There's a couple of miniature boxes from the Sideshow busts and statues, Star Wars statues, like he's carrying those. But the piece de resistance is there's a miniature carded Boba Fett action figure in there. In the clamshell, you can open it up and reseal it just like one of the jumbo figures, and it's fully articulated, but it's like 1.5 inches tall.
It's like the Lego Ant-Man.
Yes.
Okay, that is awesome. And you actually were brave enough to open it? You were brave enough to open it?
I had to know. That was one I was like, I knew that was the one, if I had to sell everything I own, that's the one I would hang on to because it's part of my Christmas decorations. Yep. It goes under my Star Wars tree every year. So yeah, I took the plunge and I opened it and again was able to get it resealed. The clamshells are really easy to reseal, but it was well worth. I if I could ever get my hands on another one, I would probably spend a little money to have a second one so that I could unpack that one every year and have everything sitting out beside it in a display.
Oh, don't. Why you are even bad as of an enabler as our other mothers are.
Yes, I am.
Nice. All right. So why don't I'm going to have you go first. Tell me. We'll do the honorable mentions at the very end, but go ahead and tell me your number 5.
Okay. My number 5 on this list is Bespin Leia. And that is because, A, I've always loved Leia. And B, I've always loved this particular version of Leia. Empire Strikes Back is my favorite of the films. Hoth is my favorite section. But the Bespin Han and Bespin Leia are my 2 favorite versions of those 2 figures. This one's particularly because of the gown, quote unquote, that they gave her, which is a vinyl cape, is such a unique pinkish peach color, and the design that they have painted on it. As an adult, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, there's so much intricate work done on this thing. I'm amazed that they did this for what amounts to what is a children's toy. And the other reason that I like the Leia Organa Bespin is she had 2 card backs, and even as a kid, the completist in me was like, I really feel like I need to get this other one that I didn't get because the card back is different. That must mean the figure is different. But I put them side by side and said, no, they're the same. But it was still something that just ate away at me as a child.
You know, I knew, of course, how you felt about the Bespin Han, but I did not know that about the Bespin Leia for you.
Yeah, in fact, when I got married years and years ago, Han and Leia, I put the Bespin Han and Leia on the top of the cake topper.
Oh, that I remember you saying.
Yeah.
I don't know if you told me that personally or that was on the show or what, but I remember.
Who knows? We won't. That memory is not at all degraded by what happened with the marriage itself.
Right? Yes.
But no, I've always loved this figure, and I love the other thing I really like about this one is the way that they did her gown. You know, the gown comes down to just below her knees, and then it cuts off, and she's just wearing pants. So it's a little bit of a cheat from what we had in the film. So this is a good example of how we can watch the progression of the Kenner line from the beginning of the line to the end, because by the time we get to Return of the Jedi and Power of the Force, had this come out then, she would have just had the gown all the way down, and it would have been split in the middle like they did with the Emperor. But this was just an example of them still trying to kind of cheat a little bit and figure out how can we make this work and still make it articulated.
So a couple of things. One, this is why everyone, if you're not already doing so, needs to subscribe to Marvin Dog Media and Talking Toys with Taylor and Jeff, because this guy knows his stuff and he's very fun to listen to. I will say for the Bespin Leia, I've always been enamored with the cape because it's still got that vinyl thing, but there's something about. There's just a lot of detail. Like I feel like with all this entire line, as we say all the time, no expense was spared and no time was wasted making these things as gorgeous and ornate as they can be.
Exactly, and this figure even has a little bit of gold piping on her gown as well. If you find one now, it's probably been worn off through play, but it did have some very faint gold piping on it as well.
Mine still has it.
Of course, it does.
All right, my number 5. Now, and I do want to preface this by saying these are the list, my list, I'm sure Jeff's is the same. This is in order of the figure itself, not only the playability, but how it looks, the excitement I feel, the memories I have with it. This is not me ranking the characters themselves as fictional characters.
Same.
Okay. My number 5 is IG-88.
All right.
Yeah. I wasn't sure, and I will say when I saw the retro Mandalorian ones that IG-11 looks like almost the identical sculpt, I was a little bit
think it is
disappointed, but I'm also not, because it's such a great, unique figure. I mean, to my mind, there really hadn't been a figure like that before or since, until, of course, IG-11. I don't know, I guess the fact that it's a little bit wider, it's taller, but the arms are very, very thin, but it's very, very accurate representation. There's something very satisfying about how you turn his head. I can't really explain that. He's got his bandolier. He's got those sweet blasters that he comes with, which is a very striking figure. Yeah, and his feet, the way that they open up and much, much wider than the rest of his body, but still can fit on a peg for anything else is It's just great. I've always been a big fan of this, and I always wish I had the 12-inch one of them as well. But I know that one's very rare.
It is, and this figure, yeah, you're right. This figure is great, and the coolest thing about IG-88 is as thin as he is, and as top heavy as you would expect him to be, because they made his feet into more like platforms. He will stand up straight regardless, even though his legs are extremely thin. The only reason he didn't show up on my list is because I could never tell which side of his head was the front when I was a kid.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, now you've ruined it for us. Now we know he's not going to show up later on your list. Thanks a lot.
Spoilers.
Yeah, he's great, and I like the fact that he's balanced enough that he stands quite easily too. Awesome.
Yeah, very cool character. I've been watching Chuck, the TV show, for the first time.
Oh, it's great.
It is. We just discussed it in the pilot episode a month or so ago, and it was one of those that I'd been meaning to watch, and I just hadn't gotten around to it. And as soon as I watched the pilot, I said, "Okay, I'm going to dive into this." And I just got through the episode in season 2 where he and Adam Baldwin, I can't think of it, Casey, have to defuse the bomb, the IG-11 grenade. Or it's IG-88, the IG-88 grenade. I think it is an IG-88 grenade. It's not IG-11. It's an IG-88 grenade that they can't defuse it, so they have to let it explode in the back. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, yeah, I remember which show I'm watching now.
Is that on Amazon or where is that on?
It's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, I love that show. I want my wife to watch that. Probably not, but it's so good. So good. All right, tell me your number 4.
My number 4 is the Rebel Soldier in Hoth battle gear, and I struggled with this one being number 4 and number 3 because I love this figure. I actually had 2 of this guy because I had one, and then I think someone had gotten me one as like a birthday present, and since it was a trooper, I was like, I'm just going to keep this one, and I can kind of troop build. I've always loved this guy, and I always wanted, because when I was a kid in Texas, this was back before global warming, and it actually got chilly in the wintertime. And I always wanted a vest and a hat like this guy because I just thought it looked so cool. And this is one that I really am basing it on just how cool I think the figure looks. I love that brown vest with the sort of beige, off-white, eggshell-colored sleeves and pants. And then he's got the brown moccasins on. But that helmet is really the main event for me because the goggles that are on it, they colored in the goggles. The goggles are black. And it's flat across the back. It's just a really cool figure. Very, very, very screen accurate, with the exception of the fact that in the movie, their vests were basically white. But I don't mind them giving this guy a little splash of color because it really did make it stand out. I just love this guy. And especially the fact that this was really the only Rebel trooper we got was another reason that this one is my number 1. Or number 4, not my number 1, but number 4.
Okay. I of course love this one too, and I used to pretend like this one was Luke, like so many of us probably did, because this was well before Luke. Because Luke was like 2 lines later, right? Or 2 waves later, I should say.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there were 3 waves for Empire. Does that sound right to you?
Yes.
Okay. And this is the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back, so we're just going to pretend like that was the plan all along.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Very good. No, that's a great choice. I'm looking at mine. And as many of you know, I have right in front of me, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shelves from IKEA, very long picture frame shelves that I've got all my original Kenner figures. So it's just fun to look at them because that's where it all started.
It's a really good setup you've got too. I used to have mine on a Detolf shelf from IKEA, and I had little acrylic stair steps behind them. But when I moved, I didn't have room for it, and I've been bequeathing my figures. I think I've told this on the show. I've been bequeathing my figures to my godson, which is Taylor's son, on his birthday and Christmas. So my collection has slimmed down considerably since we started talking about them.
You're getting rid of your original ones, so you don't have extras?
No, the ones that I played with as a kid, because he plays with them, and I want them to continue to be played with. And it's, I don't have kids of my own. I'm never going to have kids of my own. And he is a kid who is being raised to appreciate them, and he loves them. And apparently, he gets very excited when I show up because he knows he's going to get an action figure.
Well, there's really nothing quite as lovely as that. I love that. That's really awesome. That's really awesome. Now, here's an important question. Fans of Marvin Dog Media know this. Is he better at playing with toys than his father?
Yes, he does not break nearly as many toys as his dad. Okay. And here's a story I think I've told you before. Apparently, he does have a figure that he's decided he's calling Uncle Jeff.
Ooh, which one is it?
It's the Rancor Keeper.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, I don't know, like Dengar or
No,
Han Solo or
no,
something.
not even that flattering. It's the Rancor Keeper.
Oh my!
Uncle Jeff is a peg warmer.
Well, that is nice. Because well, never mind. All right, I'm gonna leave that one alone. Very good. All right, my number 4. It was so hard for me to put this in number 4, but I had to remind myself it's the figure, not the character. My number 4 is Luke, Bespin Luke.
Okay, now it's a great figure. He's spoiler alert, it doesn't show up on mine, but that was one that I really struggled with because I do love this figure.
It's the first Jedi that doesn't have the telescoping lightsaber. And I believe it's yellow.
Yes.
But it can actually been placed in his hand, and the whole thing is actually all one color, which is sort of fun. And he's just got that great brown rustic look that Luke wears for the majority of the film. It's I guess it's technically the third Luke Skywalker figure, even though the X-Wing pilot one doesn't look like Luke at all. And it's just something I spent hours and hours playing with, enjoying, whether it was the Dagobah playset or on the Falcon when he's rescued, or of course fighting Darth Vader, which is very iconic. And it looks like the original Luke, but it really doesn't. I would guess that the head is completely a different sculpt.
It is a different sculpt because the first one had his eyebrows were a lot more pronounced.
That's true. Oh, that's true. Yeah, I feel like his hair comes down more in this one. And then he's also, the way his left hand is kind of angled and bent, it looks very un-Kenner-like, and which is kind of cool.
It is now questioned, did yours have yellow hair or brown hair?
Yellow.
See, mine. All of my Lukes had brown hair. I had a friend who all of his Lukes had yellow hair, but we bought them pretty much within 100 miles of one another. But I never saw a yellow-haired Luke on a store shelf.
Yeah, I'll have to take a picture and send it to you.
Yeah,
it's great. I love it. I've got it next to Boba Fett right now because I try to put them out, and I used Steve Sansweet's book for the order of these.
You know what I was going to do when I had all of mine on display? I had them on display in the order that they were on the card back, the final card back.
Yeah.
But my plan was to eventually go back and put them in the order that they appeared in the film.
Ooh.
In the films. That was my ultimate goal, and I just never got around to it before I had to put them back into storage. This is a great figure, though. This is one of the more screen-accurate Lukes that we got.
Yeah.
Especially because you talked about those fatigues are pretty spot on, other than the fact that in the film they were a little grayer than they were this sort of tan.
Right.
But again, I don't mind that because when we get to the Return of the Jedi line, we'll talk about why gray and beige really just aren't good looks, or gray and cream are really not good looks. But this one really works, and I especially like the way that they've sculpted his holster and his belt at kind of an angle. Like the holster is dragging his belt down. It's just those little touches are the thing that really set Kenner apart from most other toy companies at the time.
And the shirt pockets at the front, and it's almost like there's a little bit of a wrinkle built into the sleeves. It's just great stuff. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll come back and give our top 3 from this wave, the first wave of the Empire Strikes Back Star Wars Kenner action figures. This is Coffee with Kenobi. Looking to catch up on the latest Star Wars books but can't find the time? Try listening to them on audio, featuring sound effects, top-notch narrators, and music directly from the movies. Star Wars audiobooks are the definitive listening experience. Centuries before the Skywalker saga, a new adventure begins. The High Republic is a massive, interconnected, cross-publisher initiative focused on an all-new era of Star Wars storytelling. Listen to Star Wars Light of the Jedi, written by Charles Soule and read by Mark Thompson, and A Test of Courage, written by Justina Ireland and read by Kaylor Lee. Visit penguinrandomhouseaudio.com/coffee with Kenobi to listen to clips and find your next listen, or buy now wherever books and audiobooks are sold.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
MEI and Mouse Fan Travel is your one-stop shop for your vacation needs and your plans to Walt Disney World, Disneyland, or the cruise lines. Travel looks much different now than it did a couple of months ago, and with the opening of Walt Disney World and soon, hopefully, the opening of Disneyland, you need a place to go where you can trust, and they will help you figure out and navigate all the different circumstances and guidelines that Disney has put out for you. And I can say that we had our vacation modified, and as soon as dates were announced, MEI contacted me directly to help me reschedule, which is exactly what I was hoping to do. So if you are interested in rescheduling your vacation or want to try to plan a Walt Disney World, Disneyland vacation, or anywhere else you want to go on the planet, be sure to contact MEI and Mousefan Travel at www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefan-travel. Their signature service and expert advice will help you maximize your vacation time and dollar, and they will help you figure out all the different changes and modifications going on at the Disney theme parks. They are amazing, and I can tell you, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, the peace of mind that Becky Mencken and the crew at MEI and Mousefan Travel have given me is invaluable. If you're interested at all, again, go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefan-travel. We are back giving our top 5 favorites from the first wave of the Kenner The Empire Strikes Back action figures, 3 3/4 inch, naturally. Jeff, we are on your number 3.
Number 3, and it might surprise you that he's this at the middle point of the list, but it's the Hoth Han Solo, or Han Solo and Hoth outfit. And we'll talk about when you hear 1 and 2, you'll understand why he's so quote unquote so far down the list. But this is probably my second favorite Han after the Bespin Han. I love this figure. I love, blue is my favorite color, and I love that he's wearing the blue jacket instead of the brown jacket that we see later in later lines. And this was the first, and I believe the only figure in the Kenner line who you could actually hold his gun in his holster.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Because his holster is closed. It's sculpted closed, but it's got a loop on it, and you could, if you wanted to, you could wedge the handle and the cartridge in between that, and it would be like he was holding it on his holster.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. And again, this is another one that's pretty screen accurate. Again, if you subscribe to the blue coat theory as opposed to brown coat, but I just love it. I love that he's got the fringe around his face. He's got his goggles up, and one thing that Kenner was always really good about is he's got this very long blue coat, but about midway down he's got his belt, and they gave him a silverish belt buckle to give it just a little splash of color to break up that field of blue there, which was a really nice touch. And then his legs were looked like he's wearing a quilt around each leg, but then he's also got the really thick, almost like electrical gloves that are really cool. And one of his hands, his left hand, is in a position so that he can hold the reins of the Tauntaun.
Oh, that's right. Good point.
Yeah. And it's got, like you were talking about, it's got kind of a slight crook to the elbow as well. It's just a really well done figure. Looks like Han. I love that looks like he's wearing an ascot. That's probably my favorite part about the figure.
I have a feeling that our top 3 are going to be identical.
Okay.
I don't know. I really don't know. But my number 3 is Hoth Han Solo.
Okay.
I was very smiley when I don't know how often we've actually had the same rankings so far. We've always been close. But yeah, this one looks more like Harrison Ford than the majority of the other Kenner line. I mean, let's face it, most of these figures don't really necessarily look like the actors themselves, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But this one comes pretty close. I love the fact that the goggles are perched in such a way that, they're not movable, but they just look like a separate piece of equipment on the figure themselves. The holster is really, really slick. The grooves in the jacket. And that blue is also my favorite color. Who knew? I knew we were brothers from another mother, but now it's getting out of hand. And again, the fact that you can hold the Tauntaun reins with it, it's just great. And the fact that we didn't get a Luke one immediately like that was always a little disappointing to me.
It was odd.
But I was always so drawn to this figure because Han Solo is so darn cool in The Empire Strikes Back. And it's just an outstanding figure. And the hood, everything about it, it's just gorgeous.
Agreed. And it's especially odd that we didn't get a Luke for so long, because we got a Wampa pretty soon into the Empire Strikes Back line, but they just didn't want to give us the Luke.
Right. Can you give us the Wampa commercial dialogue?
You mean where the kid just goes, Wampa, Wampa? This kid apparently thought that that's the sound the creature made rather than the name of the creature. And yeah, he just sounds like a creep.
Every time I think of that, I think of you telling that story. It makes me very happy.
Sometimes wonder where that kid is now. Like if he grew up to be a safe and sane and healthy individual, or if
I think he's a congressman. Yeah,
probably so.
Yeah, so that's exciting. All right, so go ahead and give us your number 2.
My number 2 is going to be Lando Calrissian. And you might ask why Lando is higher than Han, but Lando Calrissian was the second action figure I ever got. First was C-3PO, the second was Lando.
You know, my first was C-3PO too, right?
Do what?
You know, my first was C-3PO also.
I do now. Have we not ever had that conversation? That sounds like this seems like new information.
Yes, that's so cool.
Yeah, I was having dinner with Pam, my girlfriend, tonight, and I was telling her, you know, we're going to be discussing this, and she said, "I've been meaning to ask you." She goes, "What?" She goes, "Do you remember? Was there a reason that those two were your first? Because I would have assumed Han Solo." I said, "You know, I have no idea. I could not tell you. I just remember specifically picking C-3PO out one time and picking Lando Calrissian out another time. I have no idea why, except that the reasons that I loved him then are the reasons I love him now." Again, we were talking about the blue. You get 2 shades of blue here. He's got the sort of powder blue top and the navy blue pants. And I don't even mind the fact that he's got that really icky concrete gray looking quote unquote cape, because it matches so well with the 2 blues that we got. And because you were talking about how the fact that they don't really look like the actors that they're based on. This one may not look a lot like Billy D. Williams, but it suggests him quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a good description.
And I also think this one's interesting because there were 2 different face paint apps on this one. One of them, his teeth were painted white, and one they weren't.
Mine, they are not painted white.
Mine are not either, but I have seen many that were. I also have a story about this one. The cape. So he had the vinyl cape, and my Lando cape and my Ben Kenobi cape both got chewed up by one of my dogs. My brother, quote unquote, fixed them for me. He fixed them by holding them over a lighter until the vinyl started melting, and he basically pressed them back together so that they had these little bitty, you know, when you get like a slice of cheddar cheese and it has a little pinhole holes you can see through it.
Yeah,
they had those in it from there, but they were stable. They were usable and everything. So, you know, just my brother wins the MacGyver award at his job every year. He's a software engineer. He always wins the MacGyver award for troubleshooting, and he started at a young age.
So that actually worked.
It actually worked.
Is this the last? This is the last wave where we get vinyl capes, isn't it?
I
feel like it is.
I think so, because we didn't get any more characters that actually had any kind of capes or hoods in the rest of the Empire line. But yeah, and in Jedi, I started using cloth goods. But yeah, I just love this figure because I especially love the fact that he's got that, you know, they did the collar right. He's got that 70s collar on him, and this is just Lando. This is Lando to me, and he's even got his shoes. He looks like he's wearing very stylish shoes, and his pants are flared out at the bottom like they would be. This guy just looks like he's ready to either run Cloud City or head to the disco, and I just always love that about this figure. And that, coupled with the fact that he was my second figure that I ever had. He has to be as high up on my list as possible.
Oh yeah, much respect for that. And he does look. I mean, he looks super cool. He definitely has swagger to him. If an action figure can have swagger, he really does. And I'm not just saying that because it's Billy D. Williams.
Absolutely.
All right, my number 2. We are not. Our top 3 is not going to match. My number 2 is Bossk. I mean, okay. Bossk is obviously an incredibly cool, the most famous Trandoshan. He's hardly in the movie at all. There's actually a great story by J.W. Rensler about Admiral Piet's reaction to Bosk on that starship, on the Star Destroyer, when they first show these characters. But his arms are so long, but it doesn't look weird. It looks cool. And then the fact he's got that flight suit on that looks like sort of a funhouse mirror version of Luke Skywalker's X-Wing pilot one. The blaster is unique. The face sculpt is tremendous. The feet and the way they kind of spike out like flippers, but they're not flippers. It's just a tremendously super cool figure. I mean, I would say if we ever did like a top 5 or top 10 of the entire Kenner Star Wars line, it would definitely be in my top 10 because he's just an awesome, awesome figure.
He is indeed awesome. And he's so awesome that he's my number 1. So,
I knew it.
Yeah. So Bosk is my favorite bounty hunter. He's one of my favorite characters in the line period just because of this design. And you're right. He's got these really long arms and really long legs, but it doesn't look out of scale, out of proportion with the rest of his body. But the thing that I love about it is you can tell he's wearing a flight suit that was not meant for him because it's too small. it cuts off. He's basically he looks like he's wearing capri pants, and you have to be pretty intimidating to be able to wear capri pants in outer space and not being made fun of. But you're absolutely right. The face sculpt in this one is one of the more screen accurate sculpts that we got in this line, and it's because he's not based on a human being. He's based on a mask. But it's really great. This is actually the same flight suit, the same version flight suit that. Is it Bokesh? Is that the guy's name? The one that introduced Obi-Wan to Chewbacca. Right. But of course, this is painted yellow. And he's got that really long rifle that he comes with, but it fits in his hand perfectly.
Yes. And it clips on his wrist or like his forearm.
Yeah, and I just love this figure. And again, talking about Kenner throwing those splashes of color in here and there, he's got the red up around his neck that offsets the sort of egg yolk yellow and the white along with it, and he's got the little thing hanging down, looks like a whistle hanging down the middle of his chest plate there. I just love this figure, and I love that along the cuffs of his pants, he's got there are little things, little notches carved out where he could put weapons and things like that. It's just a really cool figure. This is one that I have in my messenger bag that I carry around with me all the time. I've always got a Bosk and a Bespin Han on me at all times.
Well, I always have a Walrus Man on me at all times because of you.
Well, yeah, and the Walrus Man. I forgot about that. Yeah. Bosk, Bespin Han, and Walrus Man. I always forget. Walrus Man is in a separate compartment because I really don't want to lose him. But that's right. You and Corey both. I sent you guys a Walrus Man. Was it last year or the year before?
Oh, it was a good 3 or 4 years ago. Honestly, I've had that forever. I love it. Yeah, it was in my backpack and now it's in my car with me all the time.
Excellent. Glad to know that.
Oh yeah, it's great. I mean, that meant a lot to me. That was really neat.
I actually got to when Taylor's kid was when they found out that his wife was pregnant for their baby shower. I gave them a Walrus Man figure to put up for him, and he pulled it out when we were over there for Christmas, and I got to sit down with him and tell him he's old enough now that he can sort of understand, and I told him the story about why he has it. So that was a nice moment I got to share with him.
Oh, that is really cool.
But yeah, so Bosk is my number one, and Bosk would probably be in my top 5 of all time Kenner figures if I was forced to pick one,
or maybe action figures period of all time.
Probably he would definitely be in the top 10.
Yeah.
And I have so many Bosk figures. I'm glad that he's finally starting to get a little bit of love from the collecting world. Because a friend of mine sent me a Bosk tiki mug a couple of years ago that he had picked up somewhere.
Didn't you get a Bosk hoodie at Celebration?
Oh yeah. That's one thing I was like, I hope the thing's not $100 because I'm going to want to buy one, and of course it was $100.
Mm-hmm. Do you wear it still?
Yeah, when it gets cold enough, which is 2.5 weeks here.
I was going to say this week it snowed for you, didn't it?
Not here. Snowed everywhere except at my apartment. Literally everywhere except my apartment. Everybody I knew got snow except for me. I just got a bunch of cold rain.
Oh, wow. Lucky you. That's the best kind.
Right.
All right. So my number one, this is not, well, I'm just going to say it. My number one is the Snow Trooper.
Okay. He's my honorable mention.
Okay. Well,
I had a hard time not putting him on the list.
No, that's fair. He's my number one because I've always been so enraptured by this figure. It looks amazing in the package. The fact that it's got the vinyl cape around the waist, the design of the helmet, the gloves, the rifle is pretty standard. But there's something very exciting about that helmet and the vision plate or the goggles, I guess, for lack of a better term, that are on it. And interestingly enough, when you look at close-ups of this costume or this armor for the film itself, it doesn't look that great. It doesn't look very cool at all, but it's moving so fast and it's so unique. And when it's, next to Darth Vader, there's just such a big discrepancy there that it also stands out as well. So over the years, the Snow Trooper has lost its appeal to me as far as how it looks on screen. But I've always loved the Snow Trooper, and I realized when I was playing with my son recently, it's because of this Kenner action figure. This one and the Hoth Han are the 2 of the 4 that I have of the Gentle Giant jumbo figures, because I just think it's a stunning, great looking figure.
It really is. And a part of the reason that I think that they don't look as good on screen now is because we have high def imagery and everything, and you're noticing that the front mask is not like a solid plate. It's just like an apron hanging over their face.
Yes.
Which does seem a little lame. And if you're just looking at it, it's a fairly plain figure. But again, growing up in Texas, I never really got cold, so I was always enamored of everything having to do with Hoth, everything cold, because it was different. And I loved that. I always thought it was weird that they had that skirt, and I couldn't figure out when I was a kid, why did they have this skirt around the back? I know it's for warmth or whatever, but I always thought it was cool. And I've actually got a semi-interesting story about this one. When I was putting together those Detolf shelves years ago, when I was finally being able to display all of my figures, I had my snowtrooper, and of course didn't have the gun, didn't have the apron had torn off, and I was like, but at least he's in pretty good shape. And then I was going through some boxes, and I found one that I had on card. I had picked up somewhere. Card was completely demolished. The bubble was cracked and everything. Card was bent and everything. I have no idea where this came from. But I was like, oh, I'll put this one on the shelf instead of this old beat up one that I've got. This thing was gleaming white. When you see those commercials for like Crest white strips, and you see like the before and after, this thing was almost iridescent.
Wow.
That's how bright this thing was. I put it on the shelf and it just stuck out like a sore thumb, but I loved it. And this one has always been probably my favorite Stormtrooper. This one and the Scout Trooper. It's a close second. But I love this figure. And you were talking about the gun being standard. That's actually it was a new gun at this time. We hadn't seen it before. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
The longer rifle. But I love this one.
It's great. I thought for sure it was going to be your number 1 or 2 for you.
No, that's why it was honorable mention. It was between this one and the Bespin Leia. But I assumed this one would be on your list, so I wanted to give Bespin Leia some love.
Well, how did you know it was going to be on my list? You just had a feeling?
Yeah, I just had a feeling.
I had my list all written down, and then I looked at the picture again, and I was like, oh no, I forgot Bosk is in this line. So I had to do some shuffling. So the one that was my number 5 ended up being my honorable mention. It is FX7.
Taylor will argue that is not an action figure. It's just a set piece. It's a prop.
But the bottom all spiders out. The head rotates and telescopes up and down. There's no figure like it in the entire line, period. It's just so unique. I mean, this is the character. This is the character that's in The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, that's what it is. And for what it is, I just think it's cool. It's kind of a neat little 2001 throwback to a degree as well. And I love it. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah, I ended up somehow, I don't know how I ended up with 2 of these as well. It must have been that somebody gave one to me for my birthday or something after I had this one. But this one, I'm kind of on I kind of see where Taylor's coming from with this one. I do think it's a really interesting take on the character or on the droid. I think it's really cool.
I don't know what else I do, though. That's what it is in the movie.
Exactly. So, that means the only one that didn't get mentioned on our list was the Bespin security guard.
Oh, I guess that's true.
I guess that's what happens when you wear a Burt Reynolds mustache.
Yeah, that is.
I will say that figure, the Bespin security guard figure, just to give it a little bit of love, does have a ridiculously detailed paint app on it. It's got that navy blue with the gold piping along the edges of his coat. Yeah. Really, really nice. And he's got the Devo helmet, so that's always fun.
And is his blaster the same as Lando's?
I believe so. I think they call that the Bespin blaster.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
That was also my wrestling nickname. I don't know. Just kidding.
Bespin blaster?
Yeah. Oh, well, that's awesome. Well, gosh, anything else you want to say about this line? I guess the next round, I mean, what would be the second wave?
Next is going to be the 41 back, so it'll be number 32 through 41, and that card back is another one that continued the trend of the colored background with the subtle lighting. So we got some cool figures in that one as well. But I think this is probably, of all the waves, this one is probably the strongest overall from The Empire Strikes Back. The one we just talked about tonight. The one that's coming up does have Bespin Han. Yeah. So obviously it's
where that's
got a leg up there. But so we got 10 more figures there that we can talk about.
Let's go ahead and take one more quick break, and we will return to find out more about Jeff and where you can find all of his great podcasts. And I've got an exciting announcement about the next Coffee with Kenobi. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
listening to Coffee with Kenobi. You are with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is...
As we near the end of the show today, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to have a cup of coffee with me and for helping to spread the word about our Star Wars family we've got here at Coffee with Kenobi. Be sure to tune in Monday nights at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live at www.coffeewithkenobi.com/live or www.facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi and have a cup of coffee, tea, or any beverage of your choosing with me as we continue the conversation. To join us in the CWK Cafe, which is our Facebook group, and share your Star Wars thoughts, comments, reviews, and opinions in a family-friendly, spoiler-free place that is also drama-free, go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/community and be part of the conversation, talk about this week's show, or just talk about some Star Wars. We have a lot of fun and you'll make some new friends as well as catch up with longtime friends along the way. I also want to thank all of the new and longtime members of the CWK Alliance and let you know how much I appreciate your help and encouragement. I really appreciate our CWK Alliance members: Carol Cantwell, James Kersey, Greg Hargrove, Cato McNichol, Mary Purdue, Terry King, Smooth Rivera, JC Poe, Ed Kimoto, Robert Avila, Dustin Mills, Chelsea Sansbury, Tyler Pompa, Hannah, Alex Procasio, Ian Thompson, David Nicely, Simbot Depterdarian, Christine Turk, Ross Halliban, Kurt McQuellan, Dan Ream, Colby Mead, Brian Harding, Frank Mulder, Blake Weaver, Chris Metz, LJ Souter, Chris Skavarka, Jeff Ellis, Yancey Evans, Daz Davies, Susan Gray, Thea Selby, Christian Dale, Brian McKinney, Jim Capron, Connie Shee, Jared Cantor, Jason Hall, Eric Struthers, Greg McLaughlin, Aaron Harris, Mark Suter, Angela Sauce, and Dennis Keithley. If you want to join the CWK Alliance, go to www.cwkalliance.com and sign up today. Not only will you help out Coffee with Kenobi, but you also get access to CWK Pour-Over, the exclusive weekly podcast not heard anywhere else. It's a great way to support and help out the show, and 10% of your monthly contributions go directly to the St. Jude Children's Hospital to support the incredibly important work they are doing to help these brave children and their families. Plus, contributors at the CWK All-Star level can watch a video podcast of CWK Pour-Over hosted by me, Tom Gross, and Corey Clubb. Feel free to reach out anytime if you have any questions. In addition to being part of the community on Facebook, please don't forget to visit our website at www.coffeewithkenobi.com for Star Wars news, announcements, reviews, videos, and so much more. If you have a question for me or just want to share your thoughts on the air, feel free to email me at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com and I'll share them on the show. You can also connect with me on Twitter at Mr. Zaire, MRZEHR, or on Instagram at DanZareCWK. There are also a lot more ways to connect with me and Coffee with Kenobi on social media. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi. Check us out on Pinterest or subscribe to our Coffee with Kenobi YouTube channel. On our YouTube channel, you can find Facebook Live video, different interviews throughout the years, highlights of video coverage throughout the Coffee with Kenobi history, and the audio podcast itself. You can order my book, The Star Wars Book, which I co-wrote with Lucasfilm's Pablo Hidalgo and Cole Horton, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Books A Million, Walmart, or anywhere books are sold. You can also find my writing on Coffee with Kenobi's website, as well as StarWars.com, where I am an official blogger there, and on IGN, where I contribute occasionally to articles about Star Wars, as well as other popular culture topics. If you are considering starting a podcast or a blog, let me know how I can help you get started and make your creative vision a reality. Be sure to check out danzmedia.com and we can get the process started. I am also available to come to your school, conference, business, or organization to talk about how to tap into your strengths and help you bring out your very best. I want to inspire you to be inspired so you can take that first step into a larger world. Thanks as always to our Coffee with Kenobi sponsors, especially MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, our travel partner and your one-stop shop for all things Walt Disney World, Disneyland, the Disney Cruise Lines, or anywhere on the planet you want to go on your vacation. Please go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel to book your magical vacation and help support Coffee with Kenobi in the process. If you like the show, please tweet out that you're listening, share it on Facebook, or invite your friends and family to tune in and share a cup of coffee with us. And if the Force is especially with you, please take a couple of minutes to rate and review the show on iTunes or Google Podcasts. Every review makes a huge difference and helps to spread the word, and I can't thank you enough for your help, for your support, and your friendship. I love so much being a part of this wonderful Star Wars community, and I can't thank you enough for all that you do for me and Coffee with Kenobi. I love it. Well, hey, Jeff, let everybody know all of the many splendid places that they can reach out, continue the conversation with you, and hear all your great stuff.
Well, as Dan mentioned, you can find me each week on Star Wars Splash Page with my buddy Matt Moore. That comes out every Wednesday. We review the latest in Star Wars comics, and every once in a while we'll have interviews with creators on. And we especially like to feature folks that are doing like fan work. We had the guys from A Star Wars Comic, which was a long running web comic, on several times. So that comes out every Wednesday. Every Sunday, Talking Toys with Taylor and Jeff comes out. Well, most Sundays. That's you can find that on Marvin Dog Media, marvindogmedia.com. We discuss all your favorite vintage toys. We're coming up on episode number 100. We'll hit this year for the main show. We do the main show once a month, so we've done 100 of those. That tells you how long we've been doing the show.
Amazing.
Since January of 2012, we've been doing the show.
No kidding.
And we also just relaunched last year. We relaunched the pilot episode, which is a review show concerning television, and Bantha Banter, a Star Wars chat show. My friend John Noreen and I discuss Star Wars minutia every other week, and that comes out usually, I believe, on Mondays. And John has a doctorate of music, so he is very well versed in the music of the saga, and we spend a lot of time talking about that. And a lot of times we'll just sit back and let him talk, because I could listen to him regale me with all of his musical nerdery for hours.
He was pretty great, and I didn't get to be on when I was back on Bantha Banter because he wasn't on the show for that time.
He was not. He was not. Couldn't join us that day. And then also there's the Saturday Morning Supercast. My old roommate Corey and John's wife Olivia actually are my co-hosts on that. We discuss Saturday morning cartoons and breakfast cereal, and it's just a good way to kind of relive our childhoods.
Well, I mean, it's all great stuff. All the stuff that you do is so much fun and so engaging, and you are quite an on-air personality, so it's very much a pleasure. And be sure, if everyone listening, if you're not already subscribing to all this stuff, I mean, I'm sure you are, but if you're not, please do so, because Jeff is the best.
Thanks. No, you're the best.
No, you're the best.
You're the best.
Fan club.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks again so much, my good friend, for being back on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Dan. This was a lot of fun. I look forward to tackling the next wave as soon as possible.
Oh, yes, sir. I look forward to that as well. Speaking of looking forward to things, next week is a very, very exciting interview that I'm going to get to share with you here on Coffee with Kenobi. I sat down and talked extensively with Charles Soule, the New York Times best-selling author of Light of the Jedi. It's a fantastic conversation. I cannot wait to share with each and every one of you. He's going to talk a lot about these characters, the creation of this new era in the world of Star Wars. So much to look forward to. So have a great week and weekend, everybody. Be sure to get your top 5 ready for Facebook Live on Monday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll be looking at our top 5 favorite Obi-Wan Kenobi moments. Until then, have a great one. And remember, this is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along.
Looking to catch up on the latest Star Wars books? Featuring sound effects and music directly from the movies, Star Wars audiobooks are the definitive listening experience. Listen to Star Wars Light of the Jedi, written by Charles Soule, read by Mark Thompson, and Star Wars The High Republic, A Test of Courage, written by Justina Ireland and read by Kaylor Lee. Available now wherever audiobooks are sold.